YouTube, what the crap's going on? Heir of Carthage still plaguing out here. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, unfortunately, your first few days of videos this week are going to be me sick. You could ask why I don't just wait till I get better to make a few, but it's because a lot of my recording time is going to come today, which is Saturday. And if I don't do it now, I won't have a lot of time to do it during the week. So not all the videos this week will be me being sick, though, assuming that I get better, which I assume I will. But today I want to come back into another faction focus. We're going to take a look at Galatia. Now, Galatia is an interesting faction. They're not a power faction, but they're pretty close. They're a fairly competitive faction. And I'll tell you why they're not quite a power faction, what holds them back, and what their strengths are. So, taking a look at their generals, you have access to Galatian noblemen and noble horse. Now, Galatian noblemen have a very nice charge bonus for spears. They have expert charge defense, which is going to help them against lightly armored high charge units like wolf warriors or naked warriors. They also have cavalry counter tactics, which they should. Very expensive spear unit. And of course, they have the encourage ability and shield wall. And honestly, they have very nice weapon damage for a spear unit, and decent melee attack for a spear unit too. Good bonus versus large as expected. Very strong melee defense, decent armor, good morale and health. The challenge that you're going to see with these guys is if you bring them to a battle against a faction who has an Oathsworn general or sword followers like with the Boii, chosen swords, all those units are going to really whip up on the noble spear or Galatian nobleman. This is a potentially useful unit. That charge is crushing, and I think it's going to depend on which faction you're playing against and whether or not you would want to pick the Galatian nobleman. I think more often than not you're going to be better off with the pick of a noble horse, which is going to provide you an extremely strong cav unit. Very good melee attack and weapon damage, good bonus versus large, excellent charge bonus, solid melee defense, armor, health, base morale, all that kind of stuff. As far as their melee infantry, Galatia's a little bit lacking here, but they do have some interesting tools. Galatian swords are not quite a match for, say, Celtic warriors, I don't think, when it comes to just meat shield battles, but they are pretty good and have very nice weapon damage. Their attack's a little bit lacking, and I don't know how their charge bonus compares to, like, Celtic warriors. Let's look at that real quick. Actually, a little bit better charge bonus. Slightly better attack, actually. Man, maybe I'm just wrong about Galatian swords. Let's see what it is. So, only 45 armor. I wonder how that stacks up here. So it's the same. 50 melee defense. 52 melee defense. Interesting. 50-40. Okay, so their health and morale is lower. That's where they're going to suffer. I knew for some reason in my mind these guys didn't stick out as being better, and that's probably where it's going to come in. Having that little bit less health and morale is going to be huge. The attack and the damage is nice, and the charge bonus is also nice. But I think going head-to-head with those other units, they might suffer a little bit. Still, though, a very potentially useful unit is a meat shield or a supporting unit. A very nice unit for Galatia in general. Naked swords with this Frenzy. Now, Frenzy did not used to be worthwhile. It is definitely worthwhile if you can get a nice clean charge in the current state of Rome 2. It gives you a massive charge damage boost. And Naked Warriors are absolutely deadly on the charge if they get a clean Frenzied charge. Your problem is, with so many Levy Freemen, Celtic Warriors, and all this other stuff running around, getting a good clean charge is very difficult. So some of the best use I've seen of Naked Swords is when they've actually been held for the late game to where enemy meat shields are gone, and it makes these guys a lot more dangerous actually in the late game as a shock unit, because a lot of depleted units running around just cannot stand up to the charge that these guys can deliver. Now, Galatian Legionaries are going to be the main tool that helps Galatia be strong. It's a mid-tier sword unit that's actually quite powerful. They do not have the highest charge bonus, but it's pretty solid. But what these guys make it up for in is melee attack. They have very good melee attack for a barbarian mid-tier sword, along with the good barbarian mid-tier sword damage. They have solid melee defense, armor, health, and morale, along with shield wall. So it's going to make this a very sturdy unit and quite capable, and they can fight in formation attack if you want. Could be handy in certain situations, though most of the time I think it would be better to take them out of it. So a very good unit for Galatia. I don't really know how these guys stack up against sword followers or tribal warriors, but it seems like it would be a fairly close match. Now, Levy Freeman, of course, being a key unit. These Celtic Tribesmen, no idea why these guys are here. Like, why would I pick the Celtic Tribesmen? They have less morale, less attack, less bonus versus large, more weapon damage, okay, great, less melee defense, and less health. What's the point of this unit? I mean, again, this is one of those things that, I love CA, they're great. I love their games, but this unit just doesn't make sense. And it's like, really, why is this unit here? It serves no purpose. The stats don't match the price. It's really utterly pointless. Never choose the Celtic Tribesmen. Go with the Levy Freemen. Now, Galatian Spears do serve a purpose. Much better melee attack and weapon damage than a Levy Freeman. Yeah, definitely going to have better, but the biggest key here is that it has cavalry counter tactics along with much better melee defense. So this unit is going to be good at bringing down, say, like cataphracts. If you can get it into cataphracts and pop that cavalry counter tactics, when those units try and retreat, it's going to do a horrendous amount of damage. Now, again, we've already discussed Galatian noblemen. From a skirmishing standpoint, Galatia was pretty awful, and up until the mercenary Syrian Archers were added. Celtic Slingers do give you long-range firepower, but are pretty weak. Celtic Skirmishers, again, a decent skirmish unit against elephants. But when the mercenary Syrian Archers came in, it really gives Galatia a whole new tool here, with good base morale for an archer, really nice armor for an archer, and not the best missile damage, but nice range. These guys are a very capable archer, especially for the price, and they have heavy shot and lots of other tools that can be very useful for Galatia. So definitely one of the tools that has helped make Galatia stronger in recent patches. Light horse is always a handy potential unit here. Nice melee attack and weapon damage for a light horse. Obviously, it's going to be lacking in armor and morale, but again, potentially very useful unit at getting at skirmishers. Mercenary Cappadocian Cav are very strong melee cav. They are capped to 2, but just having any mid-tier cavalry to bring along with the noble horse, again, gives the Galatians a much-needed tool. So the mercenary Cappadocians are going to be very good at fending off enemy cavalry, and they're rated at heavy as well. We've discussed the noble horse. Don't use mercenary horse skirmishers. If you're going to bring a missile cav with the Galatians, bring the Galatian Raiders. These guys have excellent attack and weapon damage. Of course, their armor's low and their morale's not all that good, but combining missile cav with such good weapon, melee attack and weapon damage, and then really good melee defense too, because they have such a good shield. These guys are a huge value, and they're one of the things that makes Galatia a threatening faction. They're good at standing off with elephants. They're good at throwing javelins into the back of enemy infantry. They're good in rear charges because of that extra melee attack. They're good against skirmishers because of that extra melee attack and weapon damage. This is just a fantastic unit and a very nice tool for Galatia. Definitely something you want to capitalize on. So let's go see how I'm able to use Galatia in a battle. Again, a nice faction overall with lots of good tools. So I'm going to take on Parthia with Galatia. Not necessarily would be one of my first picks, but whenever I'm doing these faction focuses, I know I need to play with a certain faction, and I just pick it. My opponent brings Parthia here to counter me, and I was like, this ought to be fun. So just in case my opponent brought Parthian swords, I went ahead and brought a few Galatian legionaries, though I didn't bring a whole lot. I brought 4 Celtic Slingers to help deal with enemy horse archers. And then, of course, I have a lot of Galatian spears to help deal with cataphracts. And then I have some Levy Freemen on the flanks with my Galatian Raiders and some Cappadocian Cav. I've got a noble horse, and I went ahead and put my general in a Galatian nobleman unit because I was worried that if he was in the noble horse, he might get caught by cataphracts or something else. So I've got 2 Cappadocians, noble horse, 2 Galatian Raiders, 4 Galatian legionaries, 4 Galatian spearmen. I'm a little bit concerned that the army I brought isn't actually the best to counter Parthia, but we'll see how it plays out. It's going to have a lot to do with how well my opponent plays or how well he doesn't play. And right away, he's moving up his cataphracts and his noble blood cav. I don't think this is a good choice. Why bring these guys in to where they could potentially get damaged when your horse archers can easily outpace anything I have? And I'm not going to want to chase you with Galatian Raiders. I'm not going to catch you, and you outrange me. And then again here, why are you shooting at my Levy Freeman? If you can get rid of my cavalry, my army is screwed. So he should be trying to focus on getting my cavalry off the field, but instead he's standing here, and now he's taking return fire from Celtic Slingers. And the Sarmatian horse will drop quickly. And any damage you cause on the spear units isn't going to be worth it. Giving these these Celtic Slingers the ability to just fire back here is a massive mistake on the part of my opponent, and he's really suffering for it at the moment. Using Levy Freeman here just to be annoying. Look at this. Javelin volley in here just wrecks a Sarmatian horse archer. And then I can just pull back. My opponent really should have charged me here. Should have charged me with the cataphracts and made me pay for it, but also I had a Galatian Raider back here to harass his cataphracts for doing such a thing. So I guess that I actually have decent tools at countering Parthia here. What it's really going to depend on is how well my opponent uses his Parthia against me. And again here, another massive mistake, eating javelins with his eastern cataphracts. This is going to cause so much hit point damage. And then he's about to take a javelin volley from my Levy Freeman again too, so Both of these units with their javelins just horribly damaging. Look at this. This cataphract unit is just ruined. Down 20 men with massive hit point damage. My opponent has brought Parthia, but just doesn't seem to have the micromanagement to handle Parthia. And Parthia is a very difficult faction to use. They're potentially extremely dangerous. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of micromanagement, and it takes all of those things to properly use Parthia. I get into his cataphracts without them getting a charge here, so I'm going to be able to cause more damage to his cataphracts. His horse archers will kill my levy freemen, but still a completely worthwhile use of my levy freemen. My Galatian Raiders picking off a bunch of Median cav, and then I can use my Cappadocians to intercept here, so I lured these guys into their death. My opponent definitely should not have taken that engagement, and then my Galatian Raiders get away scot-free. Over here, his cataphracts were out of position, and they get caught by my noble horse, and now they're going to be forced to retreat, but even if they do, they'll no longer have any cover from their horse archers, and my Galatian Raiders are going to make them pay. So my opponent is definitely suffering at the hands of Galatia at the moment because he's being too hasty with his engagement. He has got a lot of Parthian foot archers up here, and these guys could have easily dealt with my skirmishers. So all he needed to do was just move up and deny me the opportunity to engage his cataphracts, destroy my slingers, and I would have been helpless here. But my opponent, again, just really misused his resources, and I'm making him pay for it. With his cataphracts gone, he really doesn't have any chance to win this battle, and all I have to do is get into late game with one cavalry unit surviving, and all of his Parthian foot archers will pretty much be wrecked. And I have a noble horse here that's still got 46 men, and his cataphracts are about to be off the field. When they retreat, I can chase them with Galatian Raiders, and it's just going to be horrible for the cataphracts because they'll take losses to such a cheap unit. My opponent charges in over here with his cataphracts, but he again is going to get dealt with by Galatian legionaries and Cappadocian cav and Galatian spears. I should have used cavalry counter tactics here. I haven't used it already, and that's a big mistake. My opponent takes an infantry engagement again, huge folly, and I'm not saying all this to be mean to him. I'm just trying to give people some tips if you're wanting to use Parthia. You can't take an early infantry engagement like this, especially against Galatia, whose infantry is just going to outmatch yours in every way. So now he's going to lose his infantry on top of having lost all of his cavalry, and it's just going to be too much. Again, these Parthian foot archers potentially could wreck my army, but the fact that he wasn't patient here is just he's really going to pay for it. I make a mistake here, of course, and accidentally run into his Persian hoplites, but I'm going to go ahead and try and pull on through here. Most of my unit wasn't stopped there. So my opponent's archers are dead at this point, and the battle's over. So again, if you're going to use Parthia, you have to be very patient, you have to be very methodical, and you should only take engagements when they favor you. You should look for singled out engagements. Never just take the enemy in an open engagement with Parthia. Parthian foot archers are an excellent archer. Again, they could have easily destroyed my slingers and left me in a very bad position to get picked at by his horse archers. So I think my opponent, again, had some of the tools he needed here, but just wasn't able to use them properly, and so fortunately for me, I managed to pull this one off. Galatian Raiders being extremely useful here. My general doing very well against the weak infantry of Parthia. Of course, my Galatian legionaries having no problem whatsoever. Galatian spears playing a role, but I mean, I didn't even end up having to engage a lot of my units. The Celtic Slingers getting a horrendous number of kills, considering that they weren't able to be used for very long, most of them at least. These guys are not very good, and the fact that they got that many kills is probably too many. Again, Parthia had these foot archers, and they were only used for a short while and were already getting kills. Again, if used properly, these guys could have been very dangerous. Get rid of my skirmishers, and then start trying to pick at my general. And once my general's dead, then you can start doing cycle charges and stuff with cataphracts and finish off all the ammo from your horse archers. And he completely forgot about his noble horse archer. It was just back in the back the whole time. Again, my opponent had a lot of tools here, but again, Parthia takes a lot of focus and a lot of practice to use right. So it's definitely fun that my opponent's trying to use it, and I enjoy playing against Parthia sometimes, even though it can be wildly frustrating when someone uses them right. But it is a challenging faction to use, and again, don't in any way take it any offense if you're watching this battle. I'm not trying to run you down. I can't use Parthia right most of the time. They're just challenging to use, but again, kudos for trying it. Hope you all enjoyed this faction focus around Galatia. Galatia is a competitive faction. They can be a danger to many factions, including Rome. It's still a tough matchup, but they can still do well. If used right, they could potentially overcome someone like the Boii, though I still give the edge to the Boii and the Arverni. But again, they have some strong tools, and can definitely be challenging. It's going to depend on the rules that go into the tournament as well. Like if it's 6 of the same, that means only 6 Galatian legionaries, which is really going to hamper Galatia. If you could bring 8 of the same, it might make Galatia a little bit stronger. But again, hopefully you all enjoyed this. I'll be signing off for now, and I'll see you back with another faction focus soon.